A new public opinion survey conducted by Ipsos reveals some surprising Republican views on the media and free speech. The poll found that 43% of Republicans believe the president should have the authority to close news outlets engaged, quote, in bad behavior. 48% of Republicans agreed that the news media is the enemy of the people, and 79% of Republicans agreed that the mainstream media treats President Trump unfairly. Although Republicans pride themselves as defenders of free speech, that seems to be changing in the era of Trump. Conversely, 12% of Democrats and 21% of independents supported the president's right to shut down news outlets engaged in so-called bad behavior. While liberal pundits have focused on this new trend among Republicans, the poll reflects a growing distrust of mainstream media across all political parties. Let's try that out on two members of the media. Atlanta radio talk show host Robert Patillo and Texas radio and TV pundit Paul Gleiser. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Holland. Hello.
The social media censorship that's made so much news this past week is not a First Amendment issue, because the First Amendment protects us from government censorship. But Trump shutting down the media sure would be a freedom of speech issue, wouldn't it be, Robert?
Well, absolutely. I think this just goes to show what happens when you have the last 2, 3, 4 years of people on the right simply saying that the news media is fake, the media is the enemy of the people, because they want to only have their own confirmation or their own biases be confirmed. They don't want actual critical analysis. They don't want people to dissect the deficit that they're running up. They don't want people to find out what's actually going on with criminal justice reform under Jeff Sessions. What they want you to do is just believe the propaganda they put out there, and this continuous reliance on propaganda is what's causing people to reject real news.
Paul, you are a Trump supporter. What's your take?
Well, I cannot agree with much of that. I can say that it's a wrong-headed and overreactive stance to say that the president should shut down media that he finds offensive. I find that offensive. But it's understandable why we've come to this point. The treatment of President Trump, and frankly all Republicans, I'm a friend of George W. Bush. The treatment of George W. Bush during his tenure in office was abysmal. It was unconscionable the way they treated him, and the disparate way that a Republican, a conservative, is treated as opposed to a liberal is treated by the media, which is, there's no secret, is 85, 90% left-leaning. And left voting and left believing. So I understand the frustration, and I understand what's leading to it, because it's hard to get a fair story out of what we persist in calling the mainstream media, even though I find little about them to be really in the mainstream.
Well, about those percentages, one talking point we hear a lot from the president and his defenders is that 90% of news coverage is negative. Note that they aren't saying that 90% is inaccurate. And we don't have time to arm wrestle the president's wins and losses to date. But, Robert, is the media guilty of so-called bad behavior that the survey empowers the president to judge? And isn't Jim Acosta just the new generation Sam Donaldson?
Well, I think there's absolutely proof that the news media acts unfairly at times. I do think that when you turn on some of the left-leaning outlets, and it's just continuously Russia and Comey and Mueller every single day for 3 years straight, yeah, guess what? People want to hear about other stuff. But at the same time, I think that's where you have alternative outlets for media, that we now can turn to the internet. We can now turn to podcasts and blogs. We can find information out there. So what the mainstream media has to do is adapt to the new generation and adapt to what people are doing now and go where people really are. If you go to the barber shop down the street, nobody's talking about Rick Gates and Paul Manafort. They're talking about schools, they're talking about education, they're talking about putting money in their pocket. And I think the media has to catch up to that.
Mary's an interesting point about repetition. Paul, radio advertising is your bread and butter, so you know the power of repetition. And clearly it's working with half of Republicans agreeing that the news media is the enemy of the people. Are you and Robert enemies of the people?
Let's correct that quote. President Trump never said that the news media is the enemy of the people. He said that fake news is the enemy of the people, and he is often misquoted, and there may be an example we could point to of unfair and biased coverage. He never said it.
Are you and Robert enemies of the people?
I'm not an enemy of the people, and I don't mind a critical view and a critical examination of any sitting president, an objectively critical examination. What I don't like is to be gunning for him, and that's clearly what the media is. When we say the media, the legacy media, in way too many cases.
Paul Gleiser in Dallas, Robert Patillo in Atlanta, thank you for joining us.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.